Hello, and thank you for joining me for another episode of What Sayeth the Crooked Nose. Today, I'm going to be talking to John Wayne Worley again. You may remember him as, he did the temperament profile. The temperament is something that he describes as something that we're born with and continues on, right, throughout our whole lives. And it can shift a little bit, but the first conversation I hadn't actually taken my temperament profile test, so I've done that. John has my results, and we're here to discuss that. And so that way we can really, you can see, with me being the guinea pig, the efficacy of this and how it can, really help relate, understand our energies, how we operate in the world. And I suspect we're going to have a very enlightening conversation, a lot of fun, and I highly encourage you to check out the WIDP and make sure that you check in the comments for the link so you yourself can also go ahead and see what your temperament profile is. As always, go ahead and smash that like button, go ahead and subscribe, and hey, share this with anyone who you feel, might actually benefit from it. I'd love to be able to reach more people so that, I can ultimately, give more value to those who are really, searching for such things, searching for, the idea of being seen, understanding their modus operandi, right? Maybe something that unseen, something subconscious that they do, and bring it into the light. So then they have a little bit more control, right? More ability to use it for their own benefit. And thank you again so much for tuning in. I'm excited to have you, and I think that this is going to be another really fun conversation. All righty, John, thank you again so much for joining me. For those who don't know, John is a servant leader. He is, he does the WIDP, which is the temperament profile, which, really does look in three areas of social orientation, leadership preferences, and what people prefer, and really, what they prefer from you in close, intimate relationships. And, he had this, you actually, if you could repeat, you may not remember the exact words, but you mentioned something about who you are, right? When we were in the green screen and, before we started recording, who you are and how we get to know each other, or how we get to know ourselves. Can you maybe repeat that? Because I found that quite profound.
Well, in order to understand who we are based upon our temperament design, and of course, our temperament design is determined at conception. So when I look at you, I'm looking at a very unique individual because there's only one camera on. There's not going to be another you ever because you were determined and created at conception. And when people look at you, they're looking at your personality, they look at your behavior, they hear and see your character that was designed and shaped during your formative years, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's only one of you, and everything that was done in those years comes from your creation and your design, which was determined at conception. That's the origin of who you are. So everything from that point out has to be understood and looked at, and that's what temperament understanding is. You cannot connect with other people if you don't understand who you are.
Mm.
So the clearer your understanding is of your own temperament design, the more effective you're going to be able to interact with other people because you know who you are, you know your own value, you know what you want, what you know your own demonstrated behavior in your social orientation and how you demonstrate towards people, you know what you desire back from them and what you like and don't like from other people when they come at you. You know how you demonstrate as a leader, whether you like to lead or don't like to lead, and whether you want people leading you when somebody comes and tries to lead you.
Mm.
And you're going to find out that most people don't want to be led. Most people want
Especially
to be
Americans, right?
guided, but they don't want to be led. Do you want to be told what to do?
Right.
Most people do not, but they
Well,
will
I
be
so
led.
it's an interesting point because I don't know. I think consciously people don't want to be led, but I think unconsciously people absolutely do want to be led. And I think part of that we'll kind of discover a little bit in my temperament is that consciously, because I was kind of slapped around and always told what to do. consciously I didn't want to be led, but subconsciously I didn't know what the hell to do. I just rely on other people to make decisions for me. So I basically was giving up my power, and I wanted people to lead me without actually wanting to be led. And so there was this real, fight, right? There's real loggerheads within myself. And, like you mentioned, to be able to know ourselves, right, is a great way to be able to then take control and to be able to actually operate, based upon the rules of which, we've, our rules of our temperament of which we were born in.
Well, here you got the guidelines. See, you've got your temperament understanding, and once you understand the rules and the guidelines that are already predetermined by your temperament design, see, once you come into a clearer understanding of those guidelines, per your temperament socially, per your temperament as a leader, per your temperament when it comes to relationships, when you understand those 6 dynamics of those 6 components of your temperament makeup, that puts you in control, because now you're not operating unknowingly, being blown to and fro by every wind of doctrine that comes down the pike.
Mm-hmm.
You know who you are. You know how you're going to react socially. You know how you're going to react when it comes to people leading you or trying to lead you, or yourself in a leadership position. You know how you're going to act and react in a close, intimate relationship. And you know how you're going to be in all 3 of those areas. So that puts you in control. So when you're in control, that's going to enable you to be able to fulfill your needs and desires in life and get them met. And that's what brings peace and harmony into our lives, is fulfilling those needs and desires.
I like that. And what do you think about, just to give people a little bit more of a solid example, what do you think about going through my own profile, and we can kind of talk about, what seems to really land, talk about how I can see a little bit of evolution from, because a lot of the ways I answered the questions, I had to answer them based on how I've known myself historically, because I'm starting to shed some outer layers, shed some skins that haven't really served me, and I can feel myself changing and learning how to be more comfortable with taking command rather than giving up, right, my sovereignty and just having people just assume their authority over me. And so, but because of that, and because I haven't had, years and years and years of experience in that space, I didn't want to answer the questionnaire on how I thought I would be, and I wanted to answer it how historically I have been. That way it's more historically accurate.
Well, let's see. You that was a great presentation. Now let me throw something back at you, okay?
Yeah.
How you answered those questions is going to be determined by what you're going to look at in the profile that you're reading about yourself that you printed out. Okay. Now, let me ask you a question. What you read about yourself in your printed out profile, was it accurate, reliable, and dependable?
So I certainly saw myself in it.
On a percentage wise, what percentage of the profile that you read on the social profile, separate them out, looking at your social profile, what percentage of it was reliable and accurate, and your leadership and your relationship? Give me percentages on all 3 of them for their reliability and dependability. Before you do that, though, tell me, what are your 6 numbers? I don't remember.
You know what? How do I pull that up? Because I don't have it printed out. So I'm gonna have to pull that up. And
let me pull it up over here.
okay, perfect. Yeah,
This is a great exercise right here we're going to do, because I'll walk you through it, and your audience will be able to see exactly what WIDP has the power to do.
well, and that's really what I was hoping to do with this conversation is have, because it's really easy to talk in generalities, but to have a very specific point and very specific, person, right, that has actually taken it, and then we can kind of talk about, hey, how well does this land? And that way people can really look at this and be like, okay, well, I see the power in seeing myself in the data. So then I can kind of sift through it and figure out, hey, who I am in any given environment, like you said. So that way, when the cross breezes come in, it doesn't necessarily throw me off my perch.
Exactly. And you're going to see all that in our conversation.
That's fantastic. I'm really excited. And so as you're looking that up, right, You know, you've been doing this for a really, really long time. Yeah.
Yeah, 4 decades.
Yeah.
Well, I've been doing it longer than that, but okay, you're a 22, 53, 30. What? Well, let me write this down.
All right. He's already confused. Maybe that's a good sign.
No,
Right.
no,
And
22, 53, 35. Oh, you're a soft leader. Well, you're analytical.
so historically,
That's all I need to know. I saw your six numbers. Okay. Now you got to
okay.
understand that. All I'm looking at is your six numbers,
Uh,
22, 53, 35. Write those down.
22, 53, 35.
Yeah.
All righty. Let me go ahead and jot those down.
We tested you on April the 6th.
All righty. So eight, I'm liking that. I'm liking the eights there, right? The 53, the 3 plus 5 is 8, and the 35. Right. The digital root
No,
of that is 8.
you can't figure it out that way.
Oh no,
Sorry.
I'm just saying because just numerically, just the
Yes.
numbers that I see, and this isn't just to unpack that. So I notice numbers follow me throughout my life, right? And that different number sequences will follow me and kind of appear. The more I look for them, the more I see them.
Well, let me give you a quick lesson in these numerical values. So,
Yeah.
so you've got the first. There's six numbers. All right. Do
Mm-hmm.
you play chess and checkers? You're analytical, so you probably know both.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine yourself as a chessboard. You got six components of your makeup, of your genetic makeup. Okay.
Okay.
So we have two components socially, two components in leadership, and two components in relationship. In a social orientation, you have demonstrated behavior and desired behavior. How you demonstrate towards people and what you want back from people,
Mm-hmm.
demonstrated, desired. So your first number in each set is always your demonstrated number, demonstrated socially, demonstrated leadership, and demonstrated relationship. How you demonstrate in those three areas. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that is the first number of the three sets of numbers. Your numbers are 22, 53, 35. Okay. So socially, you're a 2. In leadership, you're a 5. And in relationship, you're a 3. Correct?
Um,
That's how you demonstrate towards people, other people, right?
yeah, historically,
Okay.
historically, I've been pretty, I could lead when necessary, but I was far more
Okay,
comfortable
no, wait a
being,
minute. Let me just finish.
okay,
You're right, but let me finish because what you're saying is true about you.
okay,
I know that because I see that.
yeah,
But you're gonna lead, but you're only gonna lead when you feel confident and competent in the area you're leading in. Okay, let's go on here for a minute.
mm-hmm,
But the second number, which is in social orientation, yours is a 2, in leadership it's a 3, and in relationship it's a 5,
mm-hmm,
right? So that's what you desire back from people. You desire a 2 in social orientation, you desire a 3 in leadership, and you desire a 5 in relationship. Now, this is on a scale from 0 to 9.
mm-hmm,
0 is introversion and a 9 is extroversion. So when you go up the scale, you go from being extroverted to going to extroverted in your
mm-hmm,
relationships. Okay. From desire, from going up the scale from introverted to extroversion, right?
yep.
Okay. So we got these six components. Now, do you understand the six? Two
Uh,
social,
yes. And
two.
so, yeah, what I give and what I desire, right?
Yes. Okay. So that's what we're looking at when we look at your temperament. So when I look at your numbers 22, 53, 35, that's all I need to know about you. So in your social orientation, you're a very private individual. You don't like a lot of socialization. You prefer to be in your own mind so that you can think, dream, and regenerate and do your analytical process because you're a very private, personal individual and you like your space and you don't want people coming into your space and occupying that because you're on a mission and you need time to prepare yourself to do what you're doing, which is your mission, and people will interfere with your mission and prohibit you from accomplishing your mission, and you're not going to like that. So you don't allow them into your space to begin with. and you keep them out of your space so you can do what you want to do. Am I right or wrong?
I would say that's pretty right on. And it's changed, it's evolved a lot, but even now where I'm far more outgoing, I still find myself spending most of my time at home alone, learning, going and going over my life's purpose, trying to build out my business. And and as much as I can feel a yearning for more, right now, that is what's most important. And so
Okay.
when I get that completely done, then I might start sprinkling a little bit more in the social area. But I would say that's
Let me tell you about you instead of you telling me about you.
fair enough.
Okay. Let me tell you. Now you got to write these 6 numbers down and look at them because I'm talking about each number, and I may talk about this number or I may talk about that number. And you got to understand, am I talking about social orientation or am I talking about close intimate relationships? And now listen to what I'm saying. Am I talking about you leading over here in your social orientation, which would be social vocational? Or am I talking about you leading or being led over here in a close intimate relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I talking about you leading or being led over here in your vocation? Okay.
Okay.
So it's getting a little bit deeper now as I'm
Yeah.
explaining. We're unraveling it, right? We're seeing the depths of temperament. We're understanding the components, and it's getting a little bit more fine tuned here. All right. There's more to it than just what you think. It's not one
Yeah.
thing we're looking at. We're not looking at DISC or TJ Taylor Johnson or the Myers Briggs. We're looking at your unique design specific to you only.
Mm.
Okay. There's only you that we're looking at, nobody else. All right. It's your temperament, it's your unique design that makes you special. Okay. And only you are going to understand this. And only you are going to be able to read what you're reading in your profile, and only you will understand the truth of it.
Mm.
That's why this profile is a self proven profile. When you read it, if it's not true and it doesn't resonate with you, then you answered the questions incorrectly because it's a self-proving profile. What you put in, if you don't put in the truth that's coming out of your intrinsic design from who you truly are, then you're going to get bad results back. You will not get the truth
Mm.
because it's a self-proving profile. It took me 9 months just to write these 60 questions.
Oh, wow.
Right. That was the hardest part of this whole thing, was writing the questions. And now that you've completed, I'll tell you the secret. There's only 6 questions.
Yeah,
They're
I saw
written
that
down
because
in
there
different
was a
ways.
lot of repeating of the same question, just in a different
Yes.
way.
Yeah. But it's so accurate because it's a psychometric evaluation. It's more reliable than the Myers-Briggs type indicator by 2 points. It's got that credibility. It's got that validity,
Mm.
reliability. It's powerful. And now listen, you're reading your own profile, you're looking at your own numbers. You tell me, is it reliable or not? Now we're not done. Let me finish telling you about yourself. Okay.
Mm.
Okay, so you're a 22, 53, 35. 22 socially means that you demonstrate on a scale of 0 being completely extrovert compulsive to a 9 being an introvert compulsive to a 9 being an extrovert compulsive, right? You're a 2 2. You demonstrated 2. You want people coming at you 2 because you're protecting your space to do what you want to do, but you will let people come into your space, but only the people that you want in there get in. And they only get in for a purpose. And you will let them in for 2 reasons. One reason you'll let them in because they have information that you want from them, and you want to extract that information from them, and you will communicate with them long enough to get that information. Then you want to dismiss them.
Oh, that's funny. That sounds rude, but I mean that's not altogether inaccurate.
Well, no, I know that, but here's the thing: if you jump over into your relationship side, into your 3 5, where you got that 5, where
Mm.
you desire a relationship, if you have an emotional connection to this person over here that you brought into your office to talk about business, if you have a inkling to let your emotions gravitate towards that person and you like them, then you can be a little bit more affectionate towards them and hang with them a little longer outside the business communication, and let them linger a little longer in your office and have a cup of coffee, maybe a second cup, before you dismiss them. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You see how your feelings are coming into play here?
Mm-hmm.
But if it's just strictly business, you want the information and goodbye.
Yeah.
Okay. But in leadership, when it comes to leadership, where you demonstrate, now we're switching to leadership, where you demonstrate on a scale of 0 to 9, you demonstrate a 5. You're right in the middle of the chart. So you can demonstrate, but you're a soft leader. You don't demonstrate with power or force or authority. You demonstrate with diplomacy. You're a diplomatic leader. You're a soft leader, and people like you because of that. They gravitate towards you because you're an easy boy. You're an easy old guy. You're the one of the good old boys. You're not gonna ruffle anybody's feathers. You know why? Because you don't like disharmony. You don't like confusion. You don't like anger. You don't like resentment. You don't like bitterness. You don't like hostility. And whenever that manifests around you, you will bring in humor. You will bring in laughter. You will bring in anything to try to diffuse the aggravation that's going on in the people around you. You will come in and try to bring in harmony. You bring in peace because you're a peaceful person. You're a diplomat. And everybody likes that about you. That's why they all gravitate towards you. And that's okay. But you have a low energy reserve that you got to protect, that you're going to run into every day between 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You're going to have an energy drop, and it's going to affect you every day. And you got to learn how to protect that. You should never make any serious decisions between that period of time, between 11 and 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You're going to have an energy drop. And when that happens, you should learn how to take a power nap. 5 minutes, 10-minute power nap is all you need. That'll re-energize you and give you energy to go on the rest of the day and be a powerhouse. But you're very vulnerable right there. You've got to always protect that. Always. Always make your serious business meetings early in the morning when you're fresh. That's the best time of the day for you. That's when you are the most productive. But you are productive all the time when you're up and functioning, but you got that lull that will get you, and you got to watch it. So that's leadership. You're a good leader, but when you lead, you're going to gather all your facts together before you step into the leadership position. I'll step into leadership and lead anytime, anywhere, about anything. It doesn't make any difference what it is. I don't care. I'll learn as I go. That's just who I am. You won't do that. You're only going to step in once you feel competent and confident in the position, have learned material, then you'll step in and lead, and you'll do a fine job. But you're going to lead from a diplomatic position of authority. And everybody's going to like you because you're a people person and you draw the people in and around you. That's your leadership position. Do you want to be led? You can be led, because you're going to be led by people, because you will learn from them and garner from them, and you'll be gathering information from them because you're a well-rounded person. You see 360 degrees, and the other temperaments don't see that like you do. But you have the ability to see all the way around. That's what makes you effective in your program, The Crooked Nose, is because you have that ability to think with everybody, and you can jump into their specialty, whatever it is, and resonate with them. And that makes you effective in communicating with them. And they see that, they hear that, they feel that, and you pick up on that immediately. And that's what makes you so effective in communicating with them, because then you become the leader and you're leading them into the fullness of who they are, and you're bringing them forth, and you're growing them because of who you are. Anyway, that's you in leadership, okay? And you have that gift and that ability, and they're going to listen to you because you're wise, because you give them the opportunity to speak, because you're just not listening. You're speaking, but you're speaking wisdom back to them. And you're learning how to resonate with them based upon who they are, because you're listening to their inner voice that's coming from the depths of them. And that's what makes you effective.
Well, what's funny about all that is that, well, I guess not funny. What's nail on the head about all that is that, I've often seen myself as a diplomat. If I could choose and just snap my finger and, just have a job, it would likely be a diplomat, of the United States of some level, because you're right. I do love that ability to examine, right, the differences in the cultures, and then bring that closer to me. And as it brings closer to me, well, then we kind of form that union, and then this new relationship is born from their wisdom seeing what I have, from my wisdom seeing what they have, and then kind of moving forward. But what's funny about, well, I guess again accurate about what you say, is that my unwillingness in certain respects to be led, uh I distrust the fact, I distrust the idea that people have um looked at the variables in the same degree that I have. Now, there's real danger there, because there's real opportunity for hubris to be like, well, don't you know that I've looked at everything, right? So it's something that you know I look out for, to make sure that I don't stick my head up my butt, because that certainly has happened to me before. Well, I look at all the data, so I'm going to stick my head up my butt, because I'm the one who looks at all the data. I'm the one who looks at all the variables. I'm the one who sees all the different, red string, attaching to the different areas. And that has, when I allow that to happen, it really has a dampening effect on my effective diplomacy.
Let me offer you a word of advice about that.
Yeah.
I learned this lesson the hard way myself, because I consider myself to be a very knowledgeable individual. I consider myself to be a leader, and I am. But I found the hard way that you don't have to address every issue that you see or hear. You know, you have the knowledge, you have the answer, but you don't have to always give the answer,
Mm,
because
powerful.
you got to be very careful and be very selective, because many times I would say 80-85% of the time people will drain you, and they have no value for you or with you. And you
Mm.
got to protect your own energy, you got to protect your mind, because your mind, here's what's important about who we are. Every time every time a second passes in our life, we don't have that ever again, and that's valuable time.
Yeah.
So you can't waste your time in talking to people that are just using your time and wasting your time, because your time is so valuable, because it's only once in a lifetime that you have that time. So don't let people suck up your time and use it, just wasting your time in idle conversation that you have answers for, but giving them the answers is not going to be any value to anybody for any reason other than wasting your time in conversation. I don't like idle conversation. Don't bring that bullshit to me. Excuse me.
That's so awesome. Well, I love that, because it's been a recent revelation for me that higher wisdom needs to be discovered. No matter how many answers I've
Absolutely.
got, yeah, I
Yes.
can't just give it to
Yes.
you.
Yes, we have intelligence that we don't tap into. We need to tap into it. Another vulnerability you have, you can be an extremely stubborn person if you want to be.
Oh yeah.
You can plant your feet. Your temperament type is one of the kind that can plant your feet, and you can be so stubborn you cannot change your own mind once you made it up. Test that out.
Oh,
That's
I already did, man.
that.
The 4 years in the army. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, you're definitely describing me. I'm seeing the
But
picture of
what
me.
but when we get over, and you don't like change, you don't like rapid change. If I come in and say, okay, I'm going to paint your office, I'm going to paint it blue. I don't like that color of them walls back there behind you. I'm going to paint them blue. I'm going to move your certificates from that wall back there. I'm going to take them, put them over here on this other wall. I'm going to do that today. So can you take your office and get out of here today so I can do that? Is that okay with you?
Mm. No, I'm already feeling resistance. I'm already feeling like,
Right, exactly, exactly. You're feeling resistance in your heart because that goes against your temperament. You
Mhm.
can't make change like that for me. That's not going to work for me. That's not going to happen. And the more I push it and come in and try to press, you're just going to push back and back. That's because it's resistant to your temperament. Your temperament says, no, 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 I
Mm.
can't do that. That's not who I am. I don't operate that way. You're violating my boundaries. You're violating my intrinsic design boundaries when you do that. Now,
Mm.
listen, if you're going through life, you got these six components, right? Whenever those six components are violated, so if I take your 2-2 social orientation and I start filling your office with people every day and putting them in there and having people come in now your office all day long, are you going to be satisfied with that? What's going to happen to that 2-2? That 2-2 is going to become anxious because people are violating your personal boundaries and your space all day long. You're going to become anxious, right?
I at first it might be pleasant change, but pretty quickly you're right. It's gonna, because I do like people, I do love conversing, I do like, harnessing the wisdom and seeing, seeing a conversation, spark to life and seeing where that goes, and yeah,
Yeah.
as it has its own life and it wields its own life. But you're right. I do very much value my alone time to be able to recharge and be with my thoughts.
Yes. And you're always going to gravitate. You can go out here for a period of time and be social and active and outgoing, but you're always going to gravitate back to that space where you want to be private and alone, socially, vocationally. But when we go over into your relationship side, where you're the 3-5, you demonstrate a 3 and want a 5 back. So you want a little more than you're demonstrating. So you got to be careful right there because you're only demonstrating a 3. And now listen, you can only demonstrate a 3. You can't demonstrate any more than that. And but what you want back is a 5. So you want a couple more back than you're demonstrating. So you have a little slot there that's not being filled because you're not demonstrating the 5. You're only demonstrating the 3. So you may have a lacking in your intimacy side of life that's not being fulfilled because you don't know how to demonstrate to get it fulfilled. Now, do you find that to be true?
Yeah, I'd say especially historically as well, right? Because I was so caught up in my own inner world, right? I ruined, 2 marriages, and of course, right, they had their part to play as well. But I certainly, did my part to kind of sabotage, not necessarily on purpose, but just by the way in which I was acting, and was much more concerned with my own inner world than I was with my partner's inner world.
But look at it from the perspective of your ability to initiate in an intimate relationship. Do you have that ability to step outside of yourself and initiate intimately toward your significant other? Is it easy for you to do that?
No, it's not easy to
No,
do.
it's not.
Yeah.
Look at your temperament. You're a 3. Do you demonstrate well? Not very well. But what do you want back? You want a 5. You want quite a bit. You're halfway up on the scale. That's pretty high, you know. But you can't demonstrate. You have trouble, but you can and you do occasionally, right? And you probably feel like you're being forced to because of the needs are so great within you, right?
Hmm.
And you awkwardly do it, right?
Hmm. That's interesting. Well, and I've certainly felt that desire to get from others, because in a lot of that I really attributed it to my upbringing, right? I, was raised by, adults who would kind of smack me around and tell me to shut up, right? And so a lot of my shy personality, right, and reserved personality, I kind of attributed to the way I was raised. Because I mean, what else, how else, what, could I know? I mean, what the hell do I know? And so it's interesting to see that the temperament is perhaps, because especially now that I'm into manifestation, I'm into a lot of the um, you know, metaphysics as it comes to as it comes to, higher consciousness, and this idea that my temperament may have actually been manifesting those things, right? Because outer world follows my inner world. So as my inner world is feeling this, my outer world saying, hey, here's a reflection, here's a way for us to validate what's going on inside of your head. And so I find that very interesting.
Yeah, but there's what's going on in your explanation, which is a good explanation because it proves the point that your inner needs are not being fulfilled from the external observation where you're looking out here for them to be fulfilled and met. They're not being met. And the internal agony is causing the discomfort internally. And you're looking for the external needs externally for them to be fulfilled. And they're not being fulfilled because you don't know how to get them fulfilled because you're not understanding your temperament needs. You're understanding, once you understand your temperament design, the way you're learning it, right? So we look at your relationship where you demonstrated 3 and 1 of 5, and it's awkward for you to do that. But when we look at you from your emotional makeup, you can give yourself permission to step outside of your comfort zone in just that significant relationship with maybe only 2 or 3 close people that you're really close with. And you can learn to step outside of that boundary just for 2 or 3 seconds to say, hey, honey, I really love you, and get
Mm,
the needs met, you know.
mm,
Once you learn how to do that, because it's awkward to step out, because listen, your temperament makeup, anybody that has a 0, 1, 2, or a 3 in their temperament numbers, and you've got 4 of them, you've got a 2, 2, a 3, and a 3. You've got 4 numbers that fall into the 0, 1, 2, or 3, are the most compassionate temperament numbers there are, which is the melancholy quadrant. 0, 1, 2s, and 3s. You're a melancholy. You fall into that quadrant. They are the most compassionate, but they don't show it. That's right there on the sleeve, right under the surface. Tearful. Tears can just come streaming. They're right there in their eyes, but you'll never see it.
yeah.
So they're very, very sensitive when it comes to stepping outside that comfort zone to get that need met when it comes to relationship, because it's so emotional laden for them. It's charged with the emotions for them to do that. And you know that because you're one of them.
I've with my meditation practices, with my my mentor who's taught me to really delve inside myself and find the different energies there. I've certainly learned to harmonize and be more okay with finding that which I need within myself rather than look outside, right? Find it within myself. And so I feel myself becoming a different type of person, and yet I still see a lot of the same temperament. So I can see how you're saying that the temperament itself, right, it can certainly perhaps change its face, but the overall core is still remains the same.
Yes. See, I'm not familiar with the energies you're talking about getting in contact with the energies that you're.
So think Jungian archetypes, right? So think of these energies that live within us, right? The sovereign, right? For us would be a king, for a woman to be a queen. The magician, the lover, and the warrior. And so when we need to get up off the couch and do something, right? Like when I was in the army, this is summon the warrior energy to get things done. If I have a deadline, well, even if I don't want to do it because I'm feeling obstinate, well, I can seek within myself and summon the warrior energy just to get the job completed. Now that is a mature warrior, right? Because a mature warrior is gonna go and fight the battles that they don't know if they're gonna win. But an immature warrior, which is what I've certainly leaned on, as a kid to help protect my energies, is to only pick fights where I know I can win, right? Like the bully who's picking on the little kid, right? And so if I am going to get into like a verbal dispute, well, make sure that I know that my facts are way better so that I can just clown somebody. And that was certainly not a healthy way to exhibit that energy, but it was the way I defaulted. And the magician, for instance, doesn't like to be cornered, doesn't like to be cornered into making decisions. Especially the immature magician. we'll look for any way out, and we'll tell these grand stories why it's totally okay, right? And these grand narratives, and soothe myself, and all for me to relinquish control for somebody else to basically come in and make the decision for me, which is not the way I looked at it. Right. I looked at it as a way of, hey, look how smart I am. But now that I've come, to the place I am now, I can start to look at that, critically, and ask myself, hey, does this serve me? And I still see, again, a lot of that reserved nature, even though I'm pretty outgoing and I have an easy time talking to people. I don't go out of my way to do that outside of the comforts of my home.
Interesting. So where does this philosophy come from?
So Carl Jung, if you're familiar with the famous, psychologist
Yeah,
Carl Jung,
yeah.
so he's the one who really, broke down these archetypes. Then my mentor Peter Sage really took me through, this groundbreaking 6-month program of called the Elite Mentorship Forum, where we truly understand, how reality, works. Going through different, physicists, whether it be contemporaries of Einstein like Max Planck, that talks about how consciousness is primary, right? Everything is consciousness. Understanding or understanding the quantum realm to the degree that a non-scientist can understand it, by actually listening to physicists break down the idea of the double slit experiment. Are you familiar with the double slit experiment?
Yes.
Okay, and so for those who aren't, it's this idea, and I might bastardize it, but effectively, you've got an electron that's being shot through one of two slits. Now, if we are measuring, right, measuring means we're documenting down what the result is. It's always a particle. If we're not documenting down, we're not capturing the data, then it's always a wave, always a wave. And physics has basically broke down that uh, all that we consider physical matter reality, my hat, your glasses, my glasses, our microphones, right? It's all light. It's all collapsed light that's turned into what we perceive as as physical form. And even sounds, right? Even sounds are related, because you have a photon, and with a sound you have a phonon. And so everything in our world is light, which then brings us to the idea of the simulation hypothesis. Well, if everything's made of light, that sure does sound a lot like a hologram. And so then this
Yeah.
gets to people like Max Planck saying, well, everything's consciousness. Well, the consciousness is what's creating the hologram. And so this right here is not who I am, right? My soul is who I am. And this is my avatar that I'm wearing right now to be able to play this
Right.
game. The same
Yeah.
way if I was playing a video game, right?
Yeah.
I jump in, I get in a video game that's got a far more restrictive set of rules. That makes it a lot more fun because I'm confined. I got to figure out a way to excel and proliferate within the confines of these rules. And that's really what we're learning, and what we've learned through that program. And then part of that is, again, understanding the different archetypes that live within us, because all of us have the 4 different archetypes. It's just a matter of which ones are more predominant. And if we can tune into these different energies, well, then we can summon them at will. It's not necessarily easy, but then we can start communicating with them and be a friend to ourselves, and be a friend to the different personas and the different energies that live within ourselves, in order to be that diplomat within, so we can be that diplomat without.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. And so I like the way that, even though I was thinking historically, answering the questions, I can see how this temperament relates to who I am now. Because again, I'm no longer that super shy kid, but I also am still very reserved, right? I'm likely not going to go out of my way to strike up a conversation with somebody that I don't know, unless, like you said, I feel like it would serve me.
But that's okay. I mean, aren't you comfortable with who you are? Do
Oh
you?
yeah,
So,
100%. And it's not a way of me trying to say, hey, look how selfish I am, I'm only going to help people who serve me. But it's like, hey, if I'm there at a party, and it would be fun, it would be more fun and exciting to converse with somebody, I'm going to do that. But if I'm at a party and I'm totally having fun doing my thing, I'm probably not going to talk to people, right? Because I'm just having fun, just doing my thing.
Exactly. I don't like to go to parties myself.
Yeah.
They're boring, I just don't want to go socialize. I'm not a social person. I'm a 0-0 socially.
Dang.
My numbers, I'm a 009026.
Wow.
Yeah.
So leadership, you're a 9.
Yeah. 90.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's probably served you well in the military, huh?
Oh, yeah. It served me well all my life. I got out of the military in 1976 and I've never worked for anybody
Mm,
except myself. Wouldn't think
yeah,
of it. No, I never thought of it. Doesn't ever enter my mind to think to work for somebody.
that's awesome. So, my mentor again, mentioned that he's been unemployable for the last like several decades because he's also an entrepreneur and just a leader, and doesn't doesn't think at all same thing of being employed. I historically, because I have given my power and relinquished my power and allowed others to make decisions for me, I, have very much not been able to see past that paradigm of working for other people. And yet life made itself so difficult for me at a certain point that I had to act, I had to change. And so then I started working for myself, and then everything just started collating around me. And what's strange is that part of my reserved nature is because of a need for certainty, right? Because the outside world is uncertain, and who knows what sort of teeth and snarls are going to present themselves, right? um,
That's right.
and so but I found that as I've connected and tuned in, even when it looks like I'm going to take another step and I'm about to fall down, right, and who knows where the bottom is, something always comes up and catches my foot. And so it's teaching me, if I am going to be reserved and go within, to find that true power and to find that true magic to help manifest what it is I truly want. Because there is a place in the world for somebody like me, even if I had a hard time seeing it as a kid. I'm now at a place where the universe seems to be conspiring for me to show me just that.
We have to be careful not to laden ourselves with being victims of the past
Yeah,
and piling that on as an excuse for failure today.
100%.
And society is doing that. And as a result, we have a fractured society that's not progressing and advancing the way it should be. It's crumbling at the top and it just continues to implode. And I'm concerned about that. Everybody has value. Everybody has so much value within themselves, and they need to tap into that value. And it's their temperament. If they understand their true value, all the things that have been piled on, all the barnacles that they've accumulated throughout their character development and formation throughout life can be shed in a heartbeat. It's a process of refinement of their own development and empowerment through temperament understanding. And once they understand their temperament and look at it, then they can begin to capitalize on the value of it and the strengths of it and walk out of that tarnishment that has been on them all of their lives. And they can become that shiny person that they've been created to be by God from the womb, you know? And then they can become fulfilled and be used for the purpose that they were designed for, to be filled for God's use, whatever that is. And only He knows. But they can't be used if they're all tied up in all this garbage that's going on because of their minds being cluttered by the turmoil that they come through in their life's development. That's got to be cleared up, and clutter's got to be dropped off first. And it can be done. All they have to do is understand their own value, because it's all you talking about the energy's already within them to fulfill everything that needs to be fulfilled in their life to make them complete. They just have to use it and realize that it's there.
Yeah.
And somebody has to teach them, and that's what you're doing. You have that gift to teach them to have that access to who they are based upon their creation. You're just telling them that they have that and they can do that. And you're giving them freedom You're letting them out of the cage with your program.
Well, I certainly like the sound of that, right? As a veteran, anytime I can give somebody freedom, right, that certainly makes the
Yes,
eagle inside of me spread its wings and
that's what we're doing. That's exactly what we're doing. And that's what we're called to do,
Mm,
where our heart's desire is. And that's exactly what we're doing, you know? And the people know that. They can hear it, they can sense it, they can feel it, you know? And that's why it pulls them in. That's why they listen to the crooked nose,
mm,
you know?
yeah. Well, and what's interesting about that too is it seems, and maybe this isn't exactly, how you would, phrase it, but it does seem that a 0 to 4 and a 6 to 9, or maybe 5 to 9 seems more, feminine and then masculine, right? The introvert is the feminine that allows things to come, and the masculine in the masculine energy, and not like men or man, just the idea of like if you're familiar with the Kabbalion, the principle of gender, that everything has both genders inside of them, right? You and
Yeah.
I both have feminine energy and masculine energy. And usually the masculine energy is what goes out there and parades and says, hey, look at me, this fire that's there to excite and warm against. Whereas the introvert is one that more holds the space, right? And that's what that feminine energy is, more what holds the space and allows things to come to them. Would you, I mean, that might be a little reductive, but do you see any parallels there?
No,
No, not at all.
no. You're either introvert or extrovert. It's neither male nor female. It's just pure temperament.
Mm,
Either an introvert or you're an extrovert. You can just dismiss the numbers and just say you're either an extrovert or you're an introvert, and get rid of the numbers completely, because numbers have no value. 0 doesn't mean bad and 9 doesn't mean good.
right.
Just eliminate the numbers and just use the scale from introvert and sliding up to extrovert. It's that simple.
And
The
I certainly
introvert,
feel more comfortable stepping into the shoes of an extrovert. But if I look at my life, I certainly live the life of an introvert. And that's where I find a lot of comfort.
you live in your head. That's
Yeah.
fine. You live in your head most of the time, and you step into the introverted side only when you want to. Think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
You control your boundaries of introversion and extroversion. You decide when you want to socialize and you step into that realm when you want to. And it's for a purpose and for a reason. And you need to allow yourself to do that, because that's when you're in control. And when you make those decisions, you're going to be more comfortable in your lifestyle because you're controlling it. If you don't control it and make those decisions, who comes in and out of it, then you're going to be in frustration because you're out of control.
Yep. Which is historically how I've lived. I've lived by
Yes,
giving
exactly,
up the control.
exactly. And now that you're understanding your temperament needs and desires, you can keep your bandwidth where you can stay in your lane where you want to be. Because when you start getting outside of your lane, whether it be in social orientation, leadership, or close intimate relationships, when you start getting outside of that lane, get outside the 2-2 socially, or the 5-3 in leadership, or the 3-5 in a relationship, when you get outside of those numbers, you're going to be uncomfortable. If anybody or anything or any situation moves those boundaries for you in those 3 areas, you will be uncomfortable until you get back in line within your numbers.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a,
Powerful.
and you can't change it because it's your genetic coding. It's permanent. You can't change it. What you can change your character, you can change your personality, you can change your behavior, but you're not going to change your temperament ever. It's permanent. And that's what people don't understand. And that's what's going on out there in the corporate world. They're using the Myers-Briggs or the DISC or the Taylor-Johnson or the PUM or the Keirsey or one of those other instruments, or the Enneagrams or whatever. And they think they're wonderful, but they're all fluid because they're all changing all the time.
Mm.
You can't use those. I mean, that's why they're having such a mess out there. Temperament doesn't change, it's solid.
Now I
And
know
it's
Jordan Peterson has a very powerful, personality test. And it seems to be superior to, like you said, the Myers-Briggs. I'm not all that familiar with DISC. However, I did fill out a DISC personality. I remember when I was applying for a sales role, and they just wanted to know what my DISC personality was. I think it was I think it was Tony Robbins that either created it or is through his website.
Yeah, the DISC is it's a personality instrument.
And personality is fluid. Okay, that makes
Yes,
sense. Yeah, because
exactly.
yep.
I'm a
Well, that's
DC on the disc, which
well,
is a
and that actually makes so much sense with and I'll probably paraphrase here, but are you familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza?
yes, I've heard of him. Yes,
Yeah, so
yes,
he's got this idea, and again, it may be a bit of a paraphrase, but your actions create your habits, your habits create your personality, and your personality creates your personal reality. And so by changing our habits, we can change, or by changing our actions, we can then change our habits. By changing our habits, we can then change our personality. And so I can see the fluidity there, and I can see how it would be hard to like nail down exactly who somebody is. You might be able to capture them in a box for that day, right, by subscribing the personality. But I can see, if the temperament is what is, overall, giving birth to all that, the
exactly,
root. Yeah.
exactly. Because you can look at their character today. You can look at their personality today. You can look at their behavior today. You can look at those three today, and you can look at the same three tomorrow, and they'll change. They'll be different tomorrow.
Yeah.
If you put them in different settings, in front of different audiences, they're going to all be different. So what you address today at those three and what you address tomorrow, you're looking at three different people, three different situations. They're going to all be different. So how you going to you're going to address this one today, but tomorrow everything changes. And that's what
Mm.
happens in a clinical setting. And it's so frustrating. And you waste time and energy and money. And it's just so, but when you deal with temperament, you're dealing with the real person.
And do you think that temperament might be tied to the subconscious awareness? And that's why our conscious awareness itself is so easily confused. And our subconscious is basically where the real power is what's really driving who we really are.
That's why we're confused. That's why we're confused in our thinking and we can't figure things out. Well, why is this happening? Or why is that happening? Or why doesn't this happen? Why did I do that? Why do I feel like this?
Yeah.
Why do I feel uncomfortable? What's going on in my stomach? What's happening here? We ask ourselves that question, why do I feel like this? You know,
Mm-hmm.
why do I feel nervous? Well, you're being pushed outside your boundaries. That's why. Something's encroaching upon your mind, your feelings, your space. You're being violated somewhere in your mind, in your feelings, in your body. You're being violated.
Mm.
And
That's powerful.
yeah, it is. And your consciousness, your subconscious is saying, hey, it's a caution light. And once you understand your temperament and your design, when the caution light comes on in your mind, you will know it immediately. You know exactly where to look. And then you know where to taper off or be more aggressive to bring that fulfillment back in to alignment again.
Mm.
It's powerful.
That is powerful. I can't help but, think. So I'm a big nerd for the Tao Te Ching. And there's this idea that, the unmoved is the source of all movement. If I know who I am and I'm grounded in the power of who I am, will people come to me rather than me go to them? Because if I'm just one person going to them, I mean, that's almost, infinitesimal, right? But if
Yes,
everyone is then coming to me because of who I am, and they're like, there's something about that guy, there's something
right.
about his energy and the way he holds himself,
Exactly.
then
Exactly.
everything is moving to me.
And the thing of it is, we don't have it all. We're just leaders where we are in our growth and our patterns ourselves.
Yep.
We're developing, we're being developed, we're
Yep.
being groomed, we're being sharpened. Iron sharpens iron.
Sure
Our
does.
communication, we're building each other up.
Mm.
You
Has
know,
there ever been a time where you had somebody take a profile, you are, kind of going through it with them, and at first they seem really resistant, but then once they kind of let go and just kind of relax into it, it just blows their mind?
yeah, you're one of them.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, and so that's funny because again, I was thinking so much of, well, this is how I was, right? And so let me think of how okay, so all right, if I'm going to answer this question, let me put myself into how I've historically done this. Okay. But now as I'm talking to you, I can see how it just completely overlaps and overlays. And it's, it's again, it's got a different face, it's got a different facade, right? But effectively it's still the same structure behind it.
Yeah, well, your temperament profile is you have to read your profile a couple of times before you're going to accept it. Your initial knee-jerk reaction is, no, this is not, I don't like this. This is not right. No. But then after you read it a couple of times and it settles in over a couple, 3 days, and you read it 2 or 3 times, then you come to grips with it, come face, say, yeah, that is me. I don't want to admit it, but yep, that's true. Is that what you?
That happens in so many things for me.
Well, but listen, that's okay. You know why? Because you're cautious.
Mm.
And that's where your cautious light comes into value for you, because you don't make snap decisions. You take time for deliberation and evaluation before you make a decision. Sometimes you will go on and not make a decision. And you won't make a decision many times because of your lack of energy, because the decision is going to require work on your part, and you don't have the energy to put into it, nor do you want to put energy into it. You want to delegate it to somebody else to do, which is okay. And it's what you need to learn to do and give yourself permission to do that.
Well, and
You'll get
with
more accomplished if you do that.
exactly. And so with that exact statement and with where I am in my journey now, right, there's this idea of working in the business versus working on the business, and that need to delegate to have people who
Yes.
can work
Yes.
in the business to
You're a
do all the
delegator.
menial tasks. And so I can work on the business and build it out.
You've got a gift of delegation, but you're not using it. And if you use it to your fruitions are going to come to pass much quicker.
Hmm.
As long as you can learn to delegate more effectively and efficiently, because you can do that. You have that ability.
Well, I see that happening right now, actually, like literally in real time, because I'm
Good.
hosting a digital summit, and I've got a bunch of different speakers from around the world, talking about spiritual healing, cognitive neuroscience, licensed social workers that also deal in the spiritual realm, and ancestral trauma. And some of this stuff is a little foreign to me, right? The idea of ancestral trauma, I kind of look at as maybe epigenetics and the information that's coded into our DNA,
Yeah.
that then is going to then as we are in certain situations, it's going to tap into that reserve of knowledge and be like, oh, here's the answer, just like some sort of computer program, just going in, right, and coming back to the idea that we're in a simulation. Well, I mean, we can even start. I don't know if you noticed or if you read up on. We're creating synthetic blood that we can actually encode data into, and instead of hard drives, we could actually have synthetic blood.
I
So
know.
blood
Yeah.
is incredible,
Yeah.
incredible source of information, and so there's a computer, there's a supercomputer inside of me. That's
Oh yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
if I'm not running the programs that I choose, then something else is choosing for me, which is where I've seen a lot of pain in my life by not being that overall conductor of what program is actually going to run.
Well, you in one of your interviews with the individual had the PTSD, and he received an enormous amount of healing. I don't understand that. I'm 100% PTSD myself. I know all about PTSD, but I don't understand how anybody can receive a healing from PTSD.
So can I and this may make a little bit more sense, but let me share with you how I healed my own childhood trauma. And maybe this will make a little bit more sense.
Okay.
So one, it's all on faith, right? So think of Jesus, right? Jesus, when that lady sought him out, what was it, in Galilee? I can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she was determined to touch the hem of his robe. And when she did,
Right.
he didn't say, Huzzah! Look at me. I'm so awesome. I healed you. He said, by your faith, you're healed. And
Right.
so the brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. Right. Joe Dispenza is another one of these people who has, put on, all sorts of different, research where they'll have a control group of people playing piano, and then they'll have a test group of people closing their eyes and just immersing themselves in the feeling of playing piano and see themselves playing piano. And lo and behold, both people create the same neural pathways of, you know, of playing the piano. And so knowing things like this, I'm highly intuitive. And so when I started getting into my magical modality, right, I started, suspended my disbelief, right? The master healer, Ed Stracher, who taught me how to heal, I thought he was a crazy person, legit. I thought this guy is out of his mind. This guy is so bizarre. Like, oh, you're a healer, are you? And so I was very rude inside of my head, not like, look at this idiot, but just like, um, disrespectful, just like laughing. I couldn't help but laugh. I couldn't help but laugh. Like, how is this even real? Anyway, as I suspended my disbelief and I started learning how to heal myself, there was a period of about 3 weeks where I probably cried about 5 or 6 times a day, because I would just I'd immerse myself into 3, 4, 5 hours of meditation, and I would just, I did just intuitively find where I needed, some love. And that's really what I was connecting to, was the deepest centers of love. And one time in particular, I went to a deprivation tank, right? A sensory deprivation tank. And, so I'm floating in there, it's completely dark, and I'm going through my meditations, and I'm feeling more love than I've probably ever felt in my life. And this idea occurs to me. Hey, you know what you should do? You should go ahead and recall the ugliest and grossest memory that you could imagine. And, because I'm wrapped in blankets of love. And I've always looked at ketamine. I'd done ketamine therapy as well. And ketamine made me really feel like I was in an impenetrable force field, and I could examine the bugaboos, right, that are hiding in the shadows. And so that's really how I felt here, but more powerfully. And so, just again, understanding that I live in a hologram, so I just created the holographic version of that memory. And so here's this memory playing out. And then I created the version of me that was, back then, 6-year-old kid, give or take. And I see him watching this memory horrified. And so then I project myself as I was then, and I went and held that little kid's hand. And what that little kid didn't have, right, little version of me, is I didn't have a dad who really gave a shit, right? I'm sure my dad gave a shit in his mind, but he didn't do that externally. He spent, I maybe saw him once a year. Once he divorced from my mom once I was 2. And so he was pretty checked out. And then when my mom remarried, it was just a tyrannical drunk. And then she probably was pretty horrified by what she was allowing to happen to her kids. So she also hid at the bottom of a bottle and was no help. And so now I've got no parental guidance, and I'm seeing just this monster. And so what I did was, I'm holding this kid's hand, right, myself, and I've got a young boy myself. And so me being a father has taught me that when I projected myself out there, I started immediately sending myself fatherly love that I'd never felt before. And then I witnessed this memory that I felt like, when I was ashamed, because I felt responsible. I felt like I should have been able to do something. I should have been able to stop the monster from violently attacking, my brother. But there's nothing. I was completely impotent, and I was just frightened. I mean, I didn't pee my pants, but I was basically that terrified. And so what I did is I took in that memory and I absorbed it, through all that love that I was feeling, just filtered out all that grossness. And then I passed it on to that little boy. And then I turned around and embraced him in a hug. Again, something that I just didn't get. And gave him the same hug that I give my son, just pure love, and told him that he never had to be afraid ever again. And I just lost him. I just started crying. And so that's kind of how. And from speaking to different people who are involved in different sorts of spiritual modalities. There was a shaman who I was relaying that story to, and he's like, oh, we actually call that soul retrieval. And so, and this is something I just intuited. I wasn't taught how to do that. It was like, hey, this makes sense. And then I tried it. It's like, holy crap, this is powerful.
Yeah. Well, how can I say this? Tears, I think, is probably one of the most powerful things in the world because it's, to me, tears is a cleansing agent of the body.
Yep.
Tears is pain escaping the body.
Yep.
It's been stored up for ages and eons, and that's God's way of releasing the pain from your body.
100%. In fact, neuroscience and psychology now are both coming around to chronic pain is
Yeah.
almost universally stored trauma or stored emotions that have not been processed. And that pain is the warning light on the dashboard saying, yo, something's messed up and your car's about to break down. But most people spend their time yelling at the dummy light rather than addressing the issue. Like, how dare you warn me that my engine, that my engine's low on oil and that I could seize at any time. What the hell? Right? Now you're disrupting my flow rather than be like, oh my God, wow, thank you for letting me know. I'd hate to be trapped.
I live in pain 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I have since 1968 when I got hit in Vietnam.
Mm.
And I'm just in pain. Last night I had a good night's sleep for the first time in I don't know how long ago. I took a gabapentin. I took 2 Tylenol arthritic pains pills and my regular pain medication, and I took an additional gabapentin last night, and I slept all the way through last night, first time in months. But and then I had back surgery, and I got all kinds of things going on with my body from injuries in Vietnam. But anyway, I have physical pain that's there 24/7, and I got emotional pain from the PTSD that's there 24/7. So I've got a combination of both going on. And I've been through a lot of therapy with professionals dealing with PTSD, and I have been a professional clinical psychologist that have dealt with an enormous amount of clients that had PTSD. And I have never, ever, ever, I've been able to bring them relief through temperament understanding, because once you understand your temperament, because more than 50% of society are analytical people. They fall into the introverted side of temperament.
Mm-hmm.
So they're predisposed to depression because they're analytical to begin with. So they live in their heads, and then they think they're depressed because they're analytical, because analytical people are looking for perfection. And so that's why they live in their heads. They want to get it right. They want to get it right. They want to get it right. So they're refining. And if they can't get the answer to be correct, then they're predisposed on the edge for being depressed because they're wrong. They don't want to be wrong. They want to be right. Okay. And so they're going to strive to be right. So therefore, they're easy to fall into depression. Okay. Well, that's not clinical depression. That's chosen depression. Mm-hmm. Right. And once you understand your temperament, realize that you can fall into that, you can say, hey, I'm getting out of balance here. I'm going to get depressed if I don't watch it. Right. So you're in control of it. Clinical depression is something where there's a genetic deficiency in the mind. It's there. And clinical depression is permanent. It's something that needs to be dealt with through pharmacology. Then there is other depression that can happen if you stay depressed and you're one of those introverted people, and you stay that way in that mode for so long, you can become permanently depressed because you stay there so long. And you stay depressed because it's your choice. You can become permanently depressed by choice.
Sure. Well,
so there's 3 types of depression you got to watch out for.
Well, so if everything's energy, our air is energy, water is energy, right? Again, physics proves that everything is light. What the map, or the model of the world in which I've created that really helps me, interact, is this idea that since all things are energy and all energy needs to flow, right? If you think of water and water is no longer flowing, well, it starts to stagnate. And what's attracted to stagnating water? Well, parasites and mosquitoes.
Yes,
what
exactly.
do parasites and mosquitoes breed? Disease. They suck our blood and they breed disease. The energy world is no different, right? So what we don't see, right, because of the visual spectrum of what could be seen, if that were like 2 feet long, well, we could see maybe a centimeter. Right. We know that there's so much more going on in the world that we can't see. So behind the scenes, as our energy quits flowing from our soul, right? Because of these depressive ideas, this need for perfection, which is, in fact, the lowest bar, because there is no perfect. And so
Mm.
it's a great way for us to whip ourselves um, meaninglessly, basically. And well, what this happens is it starts blocking our flow. And when it starts blocking our flow, well, then it starts stagnating that energy in the energy world, not in the physical world. When that happens, well, then the energy mosquitoes come in, and what do? They also breed disease, and they start draining the soul. And the soul is what's truly manifesting our body and what's projecting and creating what it is that we're, our life. Well, then as the soul is being drained, the body and the mind, they break down as a natural consequence. So what I was trained how to do is I was trained how to um, get the flow going again, in this idea that let's just say, just for simple terms, that what is draining you is evil. Well, there's this idea in the Tao Te Ching again that if you give evil nothing to oppose, it'll go away on its own. Not because it's not there, but because you can step out of its way. Most people who are depressed are like, oh, I hate depression, oh, I hate my life, and they spend all this negative, they're opposing it, so they're feeding it.
Right. Right.
And
Exactly.
and if you
Exactly.
invite the flow again, what happens is that flow then takes that stagnant energy and it just gets rid of it. And so
Yeah.
you're stepping out of the way. And then when the soul is at full strength, well, then the body and the mind heal as a natural consequence.
Yes. I see that. That's good logic. If you follow that pattern in your thinking processes, I have overcome it, and I have good control of it because I'm so analytical myself to begin with. And I have dealt with it all of these decades. And I feel that I'm as in control of it as you can possibly be because I'm functioning, I'm effective, and I'm productive, you know. But I have my triggers, and my
Oh,
family
yeah.
knows my triggers. I have 4 daughters and a wife, and all my grandsons and everybody, all my in-laws, everybody that comes around here, they know what to do and what not to do around me. You know, don't walk up behind me and spook me or scare me or tap me on the shoulder. Don't do it. Let me know you're coming in the room. When they come in, all my daughter, hey, Dad, I'm coming. You know, they know. Don't make any sudden noises or movies or slam any doors or, Anyway, you learn to live with it. It's just a coping mechanism you learn to live with. I'm in control of it. I don't like it. I hate it. I detest it, but it's something you live with. And I have never been able to get rid of it completely. And I've worked with many, many clients. I've never been able to, I've helped them understand and get control of it through understanding their temperament.
Mm-hmm.
And extremely valuable. But I don't have a solid answer for them to completely get rid of it out of their mind where they never have to deal with it again. I have never found that solution. If you could
So,
find a solution, you'd have a golden ticket.
well, and the thing is,
Listen, let me
it's
say
not
something,
like,
Cameron. Listen, let me say something.
yeah.
I was supposed to call. I got a call Wyoming. Not. I was supposed to call them at 11:20.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. Well, this has already gone over for a bit. This has been a lot of
yes.
fun. I've enjoyed this conversation, and it would be fun to maybe have you back on. And if you are interested in exploring, you gave me a gift of, the profile. I'd be happy to give you a gift of, maybe one free session. One free session likely isn't going to change everything, but it's going to give you a glimpse of what is possible. And so if you'd be interested, I'd be happy to take you through, and then maybe we could, at a later time, just kind of discuss, your experience with that.
Okay. Well, let me think about that.
Yeah.
Uh, but I do want to know one thing. I want you to tell me where you bought that hat at.
So JW Hats here in West Valley, Utah.
JW Hats. That's my name, JW.
Yep.
J-
Yep. So look at that.
JW Hats.
Yep.
And where they
JW
at?
Hats is handmade.
Okay. I will call them. I will get a hold of them.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, this has been fantastic. I really enjoyed. And widp.org, right? For people to find you.
Yeah. Yeah. To
Okay.
get the profile. Yeah. I encourage everybody to get their profile. They need to do that. Absolutely.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun, man. I really appreciate your time, and may love and truth always
God
guide your
bless
path.
you. I appreciate you, Cameron. Keep up the good work, my brother.
Thanks, man. You too. You keep it up.
Okay.
Be
All
great.
righty.